وقل رب زدني علما.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So now we're moving on to the next fasl, in which we are going to be describing or discussing the na'ib al-fa'il. So if you look at it here, we finished the mufradat quite some time ago. Then we discussed the jumla ismiya, and now jumla fa'iliya, we finished fa'il. We've got a short discussion on na'ib al-fa'il right here. Okay? Now, moving on. So what's being discussed in this section? We have na'ib al-fa'il. One thing we have here is where the maf'ul bihi becomes the na'ib al-fa'il. Then we have a scenario where the shibhul jumla, the masdar, become na'ib al-fa'il. And then we have the sarfi aspect. How do we actually form the na'ib al-fa'il? So we have those things we are going to discuss in this section. So three main rules. The maf'ul bihi becoming na'ib al-fa'il, the shibhul jumla and the masdar becoming na'ib al-fa'il. And then how do you actually make the fa'il mabni lil maf'ul bihi? We've done that in sarf, but it just be a bit of a recap here. Okay, everybody following? Yes, understood? Okay. Right, now. Babun an-na'ibi anil fa'il. The chapter regarding the set deputy. You can say here, na'ib is either deputy or what? Deputy or substitute. Either will work inshallah. Okay. So the rule is yuhdhafu al-fa'ilu. The fa'il is removed. فَيَنُوبُ أَنْهُ فِي أَحْكَامِهِ كُلِّهَا. This is now the fa'il comes at the end. So the fa'il is removed and the maf'ul bihi naba yanubu deputizes on behalf of the fa'il, anhu, on behalf of the fa'il in all of its ahkam. Meaning whatever we done in terms of the fa'il. So when the maf'ul bihi becomes a na'ib al-fa'il, it becomes marfu'. Then is the fa'il going to be is it going to have alamat ta'nith or not? Is it going to be alamatul tasniya jama' or not? So whatever we discuss regarding the fa'il, the very same rules we discuss here regarding the na'ib al-fa'il. Because the maf'ul bihi becomes a deputy and it has the same authority, same rules, same principles. Fahimtum? Everyone understood? Yes, very basic stuff. Now here's where we have something a bit different. So what we can discuss here, don't worry about the text. You say for illam yujad, I think even here. Right. So here for illam yujad, that much. What we're saying here is if the na'ib al-fa'il is what? The maf'ulun bihi. How do you translate this? Yeah, meaning if there is no maf'ul bihi in the sentence, because what takes the position of the na'ib al-fa'il? Generally, the maf'ul bihi. So if there is no maf'ul bihi, then what? What becomes? So if you have a fa'il majhul, but there's no maf'ul bihi, then what happens? So we'll discuss that text later on. For another example, if I have for example, sara ar-rajulu milan, the man walked for a mile. So milan is what? What is it in turn? It comes what? A maf'ul fi, isn't it? It shows how much distance. The maf'ul fi, which is called here dharf. That will become the na'ib al-fa'il. So there's no maf'ul bihi, is there? There's a maf'ul fi, there's a fa'il maf'ul fi, or a zarf, maf'ul fi or a dharf. So what we're going to say is sara ar-rajulu milan. We're going to say remove the fa'il and say sira milun, and make the maf'ul fi or the dharf the na'ib al-fa'il. One possibility. That's we could also make what? So basically, forget this ikhtassa wa tasarrafa. So the zarf, so if the maf'ul bihi is not found, then, so ignore this for now, then the dharf will become the na'ib al-fa'il. Understood? What becomes the na'ib al-fa'il? The dharf. Nazartu ila Zaydin. Is there any maf'ul bihi explicit, not maf'ul bihi sarih, explicit maf'ul bihi mentioned? So then he's saying here, the majroor will become the na'ib al-fa'il. There's two opinions of the scholars. Some say the ila Zaydin, the whole thing becomes na'ib al-fa'il, and some say the majroor only. There's reasons for both. That's not the place for here. But we say here, either Zaydin becomes na'ib al-fa'il or ila Zaydin becomes na'ib al-fa'il. Two ways of looking at it. So now what happened here? Or the majroor, he's taking the majroor form. But it's funny because, not funny, but maybe he's mentioned both, because in the matan he's mentioned the majroor, and the shara he's mentioned jar and majroor. So, because both opinions, so he's not made it clear what his preference is. Maybe his preference is the majroor because it comes in the matan, but the shara he mentioned it, he didn't discuss it. Wallahu alam. Anyways, either Zayd is a na'ib al-fa'il, or ila Zayd is a na'ib al-fa'il. You see? So for illam yujad, there's no maf'ul bihi in this sentence, there's no maf'ul bihi in this sentence. So therefore, in the first example, the maf'ulun fih becomes a na'ib al-fa'il, and the second example, the majroor becomes a na'ib al-fa'il. Everybody following? Yes, Abdullah, Abdurrahman, Umar, Ahmad, Muhammad. Yes? The third scenario is the masdar. قرأ زيد قراءة السديس. I don't put all the details, but حفظه الله الشيخ السديس. So Zayd read like Sheikh Abdurrahman al-Sudais. Correct? So now there's no maf'ul bihi. This is supposed to be mansub, it's supposed to be fatah. Qira'ata. It's maf'ul bihi. It's mutlaq. So you remove, when we remove the na'ib, the fa'il, do we have a maf'ul bihi? We have a masdar, maf'ul mutlaq. So now this can also become na'ib al-fa'il. قُرِئَ قِرَاءَةُ السُّدَيْس. The recitation like Sheikh Sudais took place. نُذِرْتُ إِلَى زَيْدٍ. Zayd was looked at. Sira milun, 1 mile was travelled. You understand? So you got what's happening here? If there's no maf'ul bihi, then 3 things can take its place. Either what? Either the so if there's no maf'ul bihi, then either the zarf, maf'ul fi, the majroor or the jar majroor together, different opinion, or the maf'ul mutlaq. They become, so masdar him is maf'ul mutlaq, according to the majority of scholars, not the maf'ul lahu, even if it's a masdar. So these 3 things can become the what? Na'ibul fa'il in the case that there is no maf'ul bihi. Fahimtum kullukum? Yes? Now we have to understand what does it mean by, so the previous example we translated as فَإِن لَمْ يُوجَدْ, if there is no maf'ul bihi, then the dharf or majroor or masdar will take the place of the fa'il. Now what does it mean by اختص وتصرف? So اختص وتصرف are 2 rules regarding the dharf and the masdar, not the majroor. Meaning, it has to be beneficial. You know, nakira makhsusa. So it has to be makhsus in some way. If it's nakira, totally nakira, then the dharf or masdar can't become the na'ib al-fa'il. Okay? So ikhtassa means what? It is specific. It has some kind of naat or mudaf ilay to it. And tasarrafa, I'll explain it shortly. So for example, if I say sira milun, that's fine, because what's mil? Even though it's nakira, but it does give us what? What does it give us? It's a sira milun. What does it give us? It gives the information that 1 mile. It's nakira, but it's still makhsus, isn't it? It's like 1 mile. So we know it's 1 mile. So we get some kind of information here. Okay? Yes? But if, for example, we have sira makanun, a place was travelled, or sira masafatun, a distance was travelled, then it doesn't give us any information. So that's not mukhtas. That can't become na'ib al-fa'il. Are you following? Yes? Similarly, if we say quri'a qira'atu sudais, then now qira'a has a mudaf ilayh. So we know which qira'a took place. If we say quri'a qira'atun, recitation took place, they don't allow this Arabs. If you say recitation of something took place, that's mufid. Then you can have that. Are you following? And tasarrafa mean only, so you got the ikhtassa part. And when it's an ikhtassa, so only that dharf and that masdar, which have some kind of speciality, some kind of benefit to it. Whether it's nakira or not, it has to come mufid, it has to give some kind of benefit. Then we can say this becomes what? The na'ib al-fa'il. Yes? You got it? Tasarrafa means what? This is to do with the, I forgot to, It means it's not always masdar or dharf. So for example, if I say for example milun, I can say hada milun, sirna milan. Milan, so sir milan can be a khabar, can't it? So milan is not always a maf'ul fi. But for example, the word idha, can idha ever be? Can I say hada idha? So is this mutasarrif or is it always mansoob maf'ul fi? It can change. It can be something other than zarf or masdar. Not always masdar or zarf, but can be other slots. Can be other slots. Can be other slots as well. Yes? Do you understand? Another example, subhanallah. So subhanallah is always a masdar. You can't make that na'ib al-fa'il. You follow it? So only a masdar or dharf which have some kind of benefit in terms of its meaning is not like very general, and it is not lazim of dharfiyya and masdariyya. It can come other places. Subhana has to be a masdar. As opposed to qira'ah, I can say uhibbu qira'ataka is maf'ul bihi, hadha qira'atun khabar. So qira'ah doesn't have to be masdar always. It's mutasarrif. It can be masdar and it can be something else. It's mutasarrif, meaning it can change from being masdar to non-masdar. As opposed to subhana. Subhana always has to be a masdar. Therefore, subhana has to be what? It can't be na'ib al-fa'il. Similarly, idha or idh. Those kind of words can't be what? Na'ib al-fa'il. Understood? Yes? So we've done the first two parts on how to make the sigha majhul, the fa'il ma'loom, fa'il madhi or fa'il mudari majhul. We'll do that tomorrow inshallah, okay? سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So yesterday we discussed what becomes the na'ib al-fa'il, the maf'ul bihi becomes the na'ib al-fa'il. Now we're mentioning how do you actually make the verb to accommodate the maf'ul bihi. So the mabniyun, that's why you call it mabniyun lil maf'ul bihi, i.e. that verb which has been molded to accommodate the maf'ul bihi after it. So instead of having a fa'il after it, has a maf'ul bihi after it. So how would you do this? He says yudammu awwalul fa'li mutlaqan. He's got his way of explaining it. I'm not going to explain it, but I'm just going to give a definition which is much easier, which I think is easier. Just remember this. This should be enough, inshallah. What's the first one? A fa'il mudari is the majhul is ma yuksaru ma qabla akhirihi in the madhi. Ma yuksaru ma qabla akhirihi wa yudammu kullu mutaharrikin qablahu. This is some people have done this definition in the books. Is what? If the two rules. Rule number one is ma qabla akhirihi is maksur. The second last letter is maksur. And every other mutaharrik wa yudammu kullu mutaharrikin qablahu. And before the second last letter, every other letter becomes madhmum. So for example, daraba, second last is what? Kasra. Fa'ala, fu'ila. Fu'ila. Uf'ila. To fu'ila. Yes? Unfu'ila. Uftu'ila. Ustuf'ila and fu'lila. In all of these, what happened? The second last letter is what? Maksur. So the first key element is the second last letter must be maksur. And whatever other mutaharrik they are, they become madhmum. There's only one in these scenarios. Here there are two, so both become madhmum. There are two, both become madhmum. Where there are two, both become madhmum. And if there's only one, then only one becomes madhmum. So what's the key rule? That the ma qablahu, ma qabla akhirihi, meaning the last letter, the one before that becomes maksur, and every other mutaharrik becomes madhmum in the fa'il madhi. Understood? That's a simple rule of the fa'il majhul for the madhi. And for the mudari, ma yuftahu ma qabla akhirihi wa yudammu awwaluhu. Two rules. You give the ma qabla akhir a fatha. So if you look at it, ma qabla fatha, 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 fatha. Yes? Correct? So ma qabla akhir must have a fatha. And the second rule is, not all of them, but the first letter, the alamatul mudari, must have a dhamma. So yudrab, yuf'al, yufa'al, yuf'al, yufta'al. The others remain as a fatha, but only the first letter becomes a madhmum. Yes? So in summary, the key for al-fi'l al-madi becoming majhul is what? That the fi'l madi must, the first, second, last letter must have a kasra, and every other mutaharrik apart from that must have a dhamma. And fi'l mudari, the first letter gets a dhamma, the alamat al-mudari gets a dhamma, and the second last letter gets a fatha. That's how it's explained in the easy definition I found of the fi'l majhul or the mabni lil maf'ul bihi in the books. Ibn Hisham's got his way of explaining, but if you remember this rule, you're sorted. Has everyone understood this one? Yes? Okay. What he's saying here, this one, he's saying, he mixes madhi and mudari both together. وَيُضَمُّ أَوَّلُ الْفَعْلِ مُطْلَقًا. So he's saying here, the beginning of a verb will always be madhmum. Mutlaqan meaning without any restrictions, whether it's madhi or whether it's al-mudari. Without any restriction, in all conditions, madhi or mudari, both of them will have what? Both of them will have a dhamma at the beginning. Yes? And he's saying here, and in the madhi, وَيُشَارِكُهُ أي so this is the maf'ul bihi, this is the fa'il, and this is all the mudaf, this is the mudaf ilay, and this is another ma'tuf on the fa'il, it's also fa'il. What does this mean? Look at the translation. So what's the first rule? وَيُضَمُّ أَوَّلُ الْفَعْلِ مُطْلَقًا. The first letter of the verb, madhi or mudari, will have what? What will it have? What will it have? Dhamma. And the second letter of verbs like tu'ullima, meaning bab tafa'ul, and the third letter of verbs like ifta'ala, infi'al. Is something missing in my text, or is a text missing? Is it the same in your books? وَيُشَارِكُهُ ثَانِي نَحْوَ تُؤَلِّمَ وَثَالِثٌ مُنْطُلِقَ وَثَالِثُ. Nothing else? So what he's saying here, just as this becomes what? So the awwalul fa'li is going to be madhmoom. He's saying here, if we look at it in bab tafa'ul, yes? So in these verbs, or instead of that we can check. What we can do here is, so verbs like tufu'ila, the second letter also, sharaka, accompanies it in being madhmoom. So in here, look. And in here, the third letter. So in these three, in these two, the thani, meaning the second letter, and in these three, the third letter also accompanies the first letter in being madhmoom. Do you understand the text? Do you understand what's being said? Not the translation. Do you understand what's being said? Translation is what? The beginning of a fi'l will always be madhmoom in the majhul form, whether madhi or whether mudari. And the second letter will accompany it, match it in being madhmoom in the likes of tu'ullima, and the third letter will also be accompanied in being madhmoom in the likes of untuliqa. He's only got one example, but he refers to two types of verbs. Okay? Yes? You got it? Have you understood? This is his definition. To me, the other was easier. Maybe people prefer this definition. I prefer the other one. وَيُفْتَهُ مَا قَبْلَ الْآخِرِ فِي الْمُضَارِعِ وَيُكْسَرُ فِي الْمَاضِي. What do we say? In the madhi, in the mudari, مَا قَبْلَ الْآخِرِ is always going to be a fatha, and mudari will always be a kasra. Yes? Yes, so he's saying sharakahu thanihi. We can just say every other mutaharrik before it is going to be madhmoom. That will also work fine. Yes? And the ma qabla akhir in the mudari is going to be maftuh, wa yuksaru fil madhi. Ma qabla akhir in the madhi is going to be maksur. Understood? Yes? Has everyone understood that so far? Yes? The second last letter in the mudari will have a fatha, and the alamat al-mudari will have a dhamma. Yes? Now he's saying, This one here. Which one? This is in your text anyways. And the letter before the last in the mudari will have a fatha, and the letter before the last in the madhi will have a kasra. Understood? Yes? Okay. Now moving on, he's mentioned an interesting rule. He says here, what about the word qala and ba'a? What can you do? He's saying in qala and ba'a, you can have a pure kasra. So qala should have been what? Quwila. Yes? So one way is saying and buyi'a. Mukhlasan, a pure, this pure kasra. For example, you change the waw to ya, qila, bi'a, qila, qila, qilu, qila, qilata, qilna, qilntuma, qiltum, bi'a, bi'a, bi'u, bi'at, bi'ata, bi'na, bi'ta, bi'tuma, bi'tum. Correct? The other one is mushamman dhamman. You do ishmam. What does ishmam mean? Ishmam, you read it with a kasra, but you see I got a kasra and a bit of a dhamma. So you have a kasra, there's a ya, but you make your lips have a sign, a kind of a ishmam, meaning there's a like a slight sense of dhamma. So for example, qiyula, not qila but qiyula, bi'ua. So there's a sense of a dhamma to denote that dhamma is on the mudari and the fa kalima here. Okay? Are you following? Yes? So one opinion is qila, bi'a, without mukhlasan, without ishmam, just pure kasra. Or you add a fragrance, you add a sense or an element of dhamma. Not by saying qula, but you say qiyula, bi'ua. So bi, then you put a dhamma sound, bi'ua, qiyula. I'm not qari, so I'm not sure if I'm doing it correctly, but that's the essence of it, the gist of it. And the third scenario is وَالضَّمُّ مُخْلَصًا. It's also permissible to make a pure dhamma. For example, قُولَ بُوءَ قُولَ قُولَ قُولُوا قُولَتْ قُولَتَا قُلْنَا قُلْتَا إلى آخره. بُوءَ بُوءَ بُوءُ بُوءَتْ بُوءَتَا بُعْنَا بُعْتَا إلى آخره. So you got a pure kasra, a kasra with ishmam, or a pure dhamma. For him, understood? Okay, so I got it wrong then. So you're saying here, I'm not qari, so I don't know these things properly. But he's saying here that the dhamma comes first and then the kasra. So qiyula, qiyula, like that. Instead of qiyula, it becomes qiyl. So the dhamma element comes first and then the kasra element comes after that. For me, it's very difficult, but people who are familiar with this and practice this and do much and practice, it's easy for them. I'll just go with the first two. Kasra mukhlasan or dhamma mukhlasan. But there's an ishmam in between. Jazakallah. Anybody else? Anything else? So that's the end of the نائب الفاعل. Okay. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.